The clippers were already humming before Aisha could process what was happening. She had sat down in that chair asking for a simple wash and trim. She had smiled. She had said please. She had placed both hands gently over her round, 7-month belly the way pregnant women do when they want the world to know, I am carrying something precious, be careful with me. And they had looked at her, looked right at her, and picked up the clippers anyway. Stop, please stop, I'm pregnant, please. The buzzing did not stop. The first strip of hair fell to the floor like something cut loose from a life. Then another, and another. And the women standing around her did not flinch. They laughed. They pulled out their phones. One of them zoomed in on her face, on the tears streaming down her cheeks, on her trembling hands pressed against her stomach, on the way her mouth was forming the word please over and over again like a prayer no one intended to answer. Look at her crying, one stylist whispered in Korean, and then dissolved into giggles. Aisha squeezed her eyes shut. She could feel the cold metal grazing her scalp. She could feel every vibration traveling down through her neck, into her chest, settling somewhere near the baby. She kept thinking, does he feel this? Does he know? She did not know, sitting in that chair with tears pouring down her face and her head being stripped bare, that every single one of those women had been placed there. That the salon had been a trap built months in advance, brick by brick, by someone who hated her before she ever walked through the door. She did not know that the person pulling the strings had once sat at family dinners with her husband and called him brother. She did not know that the entire performance, every whispered insult, every zoom of every camera, every laugh was being orchestrated by a woman who wore silk and smiled at strangers, and believed, with a cold and absolute certainty, that Aisha and the child she carried had no right to exist inside the family she was trying to destroy. She did not know any of that yet. But her husband did, or he was about to. And the moment he found out, Seoul's underworld would hold its breath. If you're new here, subscribe right now, because this is the kind of story that changes the way you think about loyalty, family, and what happens when powerful people forget who they married. Let's get into it. Aisha Thompson had not come to Seoul looking for a mafia boss. She had come looking for a future. She was 26 when she landed at Incheon with 2 overstuffed suitcases, a graduate school acceptance letter, and the kind of confidence that comes from being the first person in your family to travel this far for a degree. She had grown up in Atlanta, the daughter of a high school principal and a nurse, raised with the understanding that excellence was not optional, and that the world would make you prove yourself twice before it believed you once. She had learned early how to hold her head level in rooms that were not built for her. She had learned how to be the only one in the space and still own it. Seoul overwhelmed her for the first 3 months. The language barrier was real. The stares on the subway were real. The loneliness of being a black woman in a neighborhood that had never had one was real. But she pushed through it the way she pushed through everything, with discipline and a stubborn, almost defiant refusal to shrink. She met Minjun at a coffee shop near her university during her 2nd semester. He was sitting alone at a corner table with a glass of water and no laptop, no book, no phone, just sitting, which was unusual enough in Seoul's cafes that she noticed him before he noticed her. He was not what she would have called obviously dangerous. He was quiet. His clothes were expensive but understated. When he finally looked up and caught her watching him, he did not look away. Their first conversation lasted 4 hours. She did not learn his last name until their 3rd meeting. She did not learn what he did until their 7th, and by then she was already in love with the version of him she had been given access to. The man who remembered every small thing she mentioned, who learned 3 phrases in English just to make her laugh, who showed up outside her apartment one evening during a rainstorm with an umbrella and no explanation except that he had been in the neighborhood, which she did not believe for a second. When he finally told her, sitting across from her in a private restaurant with the doors closed and his hands flat on the table in a way that meant he was bracing for her reaction, she did not run. She sat with it. She asked questions. She looked at him for a long time across that table and asked the only question that mattered to her. Have you ever hurt someone who didn't deserve it? He met her eyes. No. She believed him. Not blindly, but the way you believe someone when the rest of their character has given you no reason to doubt the specific thing they're telling you. She had never seen him be cruel, She had never seen him be careless with people. He was a man who operated in a world built on fear, and somehow he had kept that world from touching the part of himself he brought to her. They married quietly, 14 months after they met. No large ceremony. No press. Aisha had not wanted the spectacle, and Minjun had not wanted the exposure. They exchanged vows in a small room with only 4 people present, and afterward he took her to a rooftop restaurant with the entire city glittering below them, and she had thought, this is enough. This is more than enough. She kept her own apartment for 6 months after the wedding. Not because she was unsure, but because she needed to know that she was choosing to be in his world, not absorbed into it. She continued her studies. She kept her own friendships. She never wore the wealth visibly, never leveraged his name, never attended the events where his other life was on display. The people in her graduate program knew her as Aisha, sharp and funny and quietly formidable. None of them knew who she went home to. Minjun, for his part, was known in the underworld as the Shadow, a name that suited him precisely because he was never where people expected him to be and never loud about what he had done. He had taken over his father's organization at 28 after his father's sudden illness and had spent the years since consolidating power with the kind of patience that made other men nervous. He was not violent for the pleasure of it. He was precise. He made decisions the way a surgeon makes incisions, only where necessary, only as deep as required, and never with shaking hands. With Aisha, he was different. Around her, the precision became something warmer. He laughed more. He cooked badly and refused to admit it. He left notes in the apartment in a mix of Korean and English that she had started collecting in a drawer. When she told him she was pregnant, he had gone completely still for 5 full seconds, and then his face had done something she had never seen it do before. It had broken open with joy, quiet and total and completely unguarded. He would have given that child the world. His sister intended to make sure it never arrived to receive it. Jion was 4 years older than Minjun and had spent most of her adult life convinced that the family organization should have passed to her. She was intelligent, ambitious, and absolutely consumed by the belief that blood purity and tradition were the only foundations on which power could be built. She had tolerated Minjun's marriage to a foreigner the way one tolerates a headache, with visible strain and the private certainty that it would pass. It had not passed. It had instead produced a pregnancy, and the pregnancy had produced in Jion a specific, calculated terror. If the child was a boy, he would be next in line. He would be mixed. He would be, in Jion's framework, a corruption of everything she considered hers by right. She had begun her campaign against Aisha long before Aisha knew there was a war. Jion had spent years quietly building a secondary network of influence through the luxury beauty and wellness industry in Seoul. It looked legitimate, a portfolio of high-end salons, spas, and aesthetic clinics that served the city's wealthiest women. What it actually was a surveillance and intimidation infrastructure. The stylists and managers in those establishments reported to her. They passed information. They managed reputations. And on specific occasions, for specific purposes, they applied pressure in ways that left no fingerprints. She had chosen the salon on Cheongdam-dong carefully. It was the kind of place Aisha would trust, elegant exterior, glowing reviews, the kind of discreet luxury that a well-educated woman would equate with safety. Jion had spent 3 months placing the right people in the right positions. She had briefed the head stylist personally. She had been very specific about what she wanted, and what she wanted was simple. She wanted Aisha to feel in her bones that she did not belong. She wanted her humiliated, photographed, and sent home in pieces. She wanted a woman 7 months pregnant to sit in a chair and understand that no amount of marriage certificates would make her welcome. She had not, in her meticulous and cold-blooded planning, accounted for one thing. Her brother had been watching her for weeks. The morning of the salon appointment, Aisha's hair had been bothering her for days. The pregnancy had taken a physical toll that no one had warned her about in quite the specific way she needed to be warned. Her scalp was sensitive. Her edges were fragile. Her hair, which she had always worn natural and carefully maintained, had been thinning at the temples in a way that made her anxious each morning in the mirror. She had started parting it differently to cover the spots. She had started touching it less. That was the part that hurt quietly, being afraid of her own hair, afraid of the mirror, afraid of what the next handful of strands pulled loose would mean. Her OB had told her it was completely normal. Hormonal shifts, increased blood volume, the body making decisions about resource distribution with all the subtlety of a contractor who has run out of materials mid-project. She had been advised to reduce manipulation, use gentle products, avoid heat, treat her scalp like something delicate. She had followed the advice carefully, but the anxiety remained. A woman's relationship with her hair runs deeper than aesthetics. It is tied to something older, identity, care, the memory of hands in it when she was small. She had searched for a salon that specialized in natural hair care and found, through an online recommendation thread on a Seoul expat forum, glowing references to a place called Muril on Cheongdam-dong. The thread described it as one of the only salons in that district with stylists trained in textured, natural, and type 4 hair. The reviews were in both Korean and English. Several of them were from Black and mixed women living in Seoul who described their experiences warmly, specifically calling out the gentleness of the staff and the quality of the deep conditioning treatments. Aisha had read them twice, saved the link, and felt the specific relief of a woman who has found something she did not fully realize she had been looking for. It was expensive. She booked it anyway. The pregnancy had done something to her relationship with self-care. It had made it feel less indulgent and more necessary, the way feeding yourself stops being optional once someone else depends on your body to function. She dressed carefully on Thursday morning, choosing a loose linen dress in deep burgundy that cleared her belly comfortably and flat sandals she could get in and out of without bending. She pinned her hair up loosely for the taxi ride, not wanting to arrive with it pressed against a headrest. She brought her own products in a small bag, her leave-in conditioner, her detangling spray, the specific oil she had been using on her scalp, because she was not going to walk into someone else's hands without her tools. She arrived 5 minutes early. The salon's exterior was precisely what the reviews had promised: understated luxury, large windows with minimal dressing, the kind of front that said expensive without trying to. She walked in through glass doors into the smell of something floral and warm. The front desk was staffed by a young woman in a neat black top, whose expression cycled briefly and visibly through surprise before settling into a professional neutrality. "I have an appointment," Aisha said in Korean, smiling, "for a wash and deep conditioning treatment. My name is Aisha." "Yes," the young woman said. She looked at Aisha's hair, at the thick, coiled natural texture gathered at the top of her head, and then looked at her face, and something passed through her expression that had no name in any language, but which Aisha had seen before on other faces in other rooms. It was the calculation of someone determining how to handle a situation they had been briefed about. "Please wait," the woman said and disappeared through a door. Aisha sat in one of the reception chairs. She put her bag on her lap. She looked around the salon. It was genuinely beautiful, she noted. High ceilings, stations with good lighting. Stylists moving between clients with the practiced efficiency of people who were very good at their work. Nothing about the space looked like what it was. She waited 11 minutes before anyone came to collect her. When they finally brought her through, it was not to one of the main styling stations near the windows, the ones with the good natural light and the mirrored walls. It was to a smaller chair in the back of the salon, partly separated from the rest of the floor by a half wall and a rack of product displays. The lighting back there was fluorescent and less flattering. The chair was older than the others. She noticed. She did not say anything about it. She told herself it was overflow seating, that the main stations were occupied, that she was reading intention into something logistical. She sat down. She unclipped her hair and let it fall. She set her product bag on the counter in front of her and arranged the bottles with the labels facing outward, a quiet signal. "I have brought my own things. I know what I need." 2 stylists materialized, one young, maybe 22, with a look of studied blankness, and one closer to 40 with the kind of face that had long since stopped bothering to conceal what it thought. They stood behind her and looked at her hair in the mirror the way people look at a problem they are deciding how to describe. They began talking to each other in Korean, rapid, idiomatic, with the specific register of people who do not expect to be understood. Aisha caught pieces. The word for foreign, the word for coarse. A phrase she had heard before in other contexts that translated, roughly, to not our kind of thing. And then a term she did not know but which landed in her chest anyway, the way certain tones do regardless of their meaning. "I'd like to start with a wash," she said, in Korean, clearly and pleasantly. "Then the deep conditioning treatment. I've brought my own products. I've had good results with these during the pregnancy. I am 7 months along, so I just ask that you be gentle with the scalp. No heat at all, please." The older stylist glanced at her product bottles and did not pick any of them up. "We use the salon's products," she said. "Of course," Aisha said, "but I've been using these specifically for the scalp sensitivity. If you could just use these for the conditioning phase." "We use the salon's products," the woman repeated, as though Aisha had not spoken. Aisha held the conversation in her head for a moment, the version where she pushed back firmly, the version where she let it go, and chose the middle path that pregnant women often choose in public spaces when they need things to stay calm. "Okay," she said. "No problem." The wash happened. It was not gentle. The woman's hands on her scalp were brisk to the point of roughness, fingernails catching several times in ways that made Aisha flinch and grip the armrests. She said nothing. She breathed through it. She told herself, "This is almost done, this is almost over, you will leave here and you will not come back, but you will get through this part first." Then they brought her back to the chair, and the older stylist picked up a wide-toothed comb and dragged it through a section of Aisha's hair with a force that was not accidental. Aisha gasped. Her hands flew to her stomach by reflex, the way they always did when something startled her. "Please, that hurts." "Your hair is very difficult," the woman said, without pausing, without looking at her in the mirror. "If you start from the ends and work upward," Aisha began. "I know how to do my job. I'm not questioning that. I'm just telling you how my hair works." The woman said something to the younger stylist in Korean. The younger one covered a smile. A third stylist drifted over from somewhere across the salon. She did not come to help. She came the way people come to watch something. She stood at a slight distance and looked at Aisha's reflection in the mirror with an expression that could not be described as anything other than contemptuous curiosity. A fourth joined her a moment later, saying something low that the others acknowledged with nods. The semicircle around Aisha's chair formed slowly, the way these things do, not like a sudden confrontation, but like a tide, gradual and then all at once. And the atmosphere shifted with it, the way temperature shifts in a room when enough people in it have agreed on something without saying it out loud. Aisha kept her hands on her stomach. She kept her eyes level in the mirror. She kept her breathing even. She told herself she was imagining it. She told herself it was discomfort and unfamiliarity and language gap, the ordinary difficulty of being foreign in a space that was not built for you. She told herself this because the alternative, that it was intentional, that she had walked into something designed specifically for her, was too large to hold in a hair salon chair while 7 months pregnant. She was still telling herself that when the head stylist came from the back with the clippers in her hand. They were professional clippers, the kind used for close cropping, not scissors, not a trimming tool. Clippers buzzing when she turned them on, the sound filling that back corner of the salon like a declaration. Aisha's eyes went to them in the mirror. "What are those for?" "Your hair is too damaged," the head stylist said. She had a particular quality of voice, flat, authoritative, the voice of someone who has decided that what they are about to say is simply a fact and not a choice. "We cannot treat it properly in this condition. The only solution is to cut it short and start clean." "I didn't ask for a cut." Aisha's voice was absolutely steady. "I asked for a wash and a deep conditioning treatment. I said that clearly when I booked and again when I sat down. I did not ask for any cutting." "It is the professional recommendation. And I am professionally declining it. I would like to finish my appointment as booked, or I would like to leave." She began to rise from the chair. Her hands pushed down on the armrests. Her body shifted forward. 2 of the stylists stepped in, not grabbing her, not yet, but positioning themselves in a way that occupied the space between the chair and the exit. One of them put a hand on her shoulder. Light pressure. intentional. "We will make it quick," the head stylist said. "Get your hand off of me." Not loud, not hysterical, cold and exact. "I am 7 months pregnant. Remove your hand right now." The hand did not move. "I'm telling you for the last time." The clippers touched her temple. The sound she made was not a word. It was the sound of someone who has suddenly, completely, understood a situation they were misreading. She tried again to stand and was pushed back down, firmly, by hands that were no longer pretending to be gentle. "Please," the word broke as she said it. "Please, I'm pregnant, my baby, please, please stop." The first pass of the clippers went straight up the center of her head. She saw it in the mirror. She felt it, the cold metal on her scalp, the vibration traveling down through the crown and into her neck and her chest, and the strange, devastating weightlessness of hair that was no longer there. A long strip of bare brown scalp in the mirror, and around it her hair that she had grown and cared for and worried over, framing the damage the way dark water frames a wound. She closed her eyes. She pressed both palms flat against her stomach, and she held on to what was in there, to the weight of him, to the small, insistent presence she had been carrying for 7 months, to the only thing in that room that could not be touched. "Please stop," she whispered. "I am begging you, please stop." They did not stop. The phones came out on the second pass. She heard the sounds, the camera clicks, the small adjustments of position as people found better angles. Someone made a comment, and the laughter that followed was not bothered to be quiet. She caught phrases. "Dirty foreigner," "doesn't belong," and then something about her stomach, something about the child, about what it would and would not be that she caught enough of to understand and could not make herself fully translate because her mind, mercifully, refused. She stopped listening. She kept her eyes closed. She kept her hands on her stomach and she breathed in through her nose, out through her mouth, the way her prenatal class had taught her, the method designed for labor, for the worst of it, for the moment when the only thing you can control is whether you keep breathing. She used it now because this was its own kind of labor. This was its own kind of violent passage she had not asked for and could not stop. The clippers moved. The hair fell. The laughing continued. Someone zoomed a camera in on her face, and she felt the proximity of it like a physical thing, like something pressing against her cheek. By the time they turned the clippers off, Aisha Thompson's head was completely bald. She did not look in the mirror immediately. She sat for a moment with her eyes still closed, hands still pressed against her stomach, and just breathed. In, out. He was still moving in there. She could feel the faint kick that had become familiar to her over the past weeks, the one that usually came in the afternoon. He was fine. They were both fine. She was still here. She opened her eyes. The reflection was her and was not her. Not because she looked ugly, she did not even now, even like this, with her face wet and her expression hollowed out. It was not about ugly. It was about the expression. She had never seen her own face do that. She had been through things. She had been underestimated, dismissed, talked over, left out of rooms that were built to exclude her. She had been strong through all of it. But she had never seen herself look like something had been taken. Not won away fairly in a contest, but simply taken. The way things are taken from people who are told they are not allowed to keep them. She reached into her bag with hands that would not stop trembling and found her phone. It rang twice before he answered. "Hey," his voice was warm. He had been in a meeting. She could hear it in the slight formality dropping away as he registered that it was her. "How was the—" She couldn't speak for a moment. "Aisha," the warmth in his voice changed. Something else moved underneath it. "Talk to me." She stopped, started again. "I went to the Salon. Minjun, another stop. The sob that came out was ugly and complete, the kind that had nothing to do with pride or composure. They shaved my head. I told them to stop. I told them I was pregnant. I begged them. They held me down and they shaved my head and they recorded it and they were laughing." The silence on his end lasted exactly 4 seconds. When he spoke again, his voice had changed in a way that she had only heard once before, on the night 2 years ago when someone had followed her home, and he had found out 3 hours later. It was not loud. It was not angry in any conventional sense. It was the voice of a man setting something down very carefully before he picked up something else. "What's the name of the salon?" Minjun. The name Aisha. Muril, Anching Damdong. Are you still inside? Yes. Don't move. Do not engage with anyone. I will be there in 20 minutes. If you haven't subscribed yet, do it now, because what happens in the next 20 minutes is exactly why this channel exists. Stay with me. What Aisha did not know, sitting in that chair with her phone pressed against her chest, was that while she had been trying to survive the previous 40 minutes, a series of events had been unfolding on the other side of the city that were about to collapse everything Jion had spent months building. The head stylist, flushed with the satisfaction of a job completed, had made a mistake. She had opened her messaging app, pulled up the private contact she had been given 4 months ago, and sent a photo Aisha's reflection in the salon mirror, head bare, face wet with tears, both hands on her stomach. Above the photo she had typed, "Job done, ma'am." And then, because she was feeling generous with her own cruelty, she had sent 2 more photos and a short video clip and waited. The reply had come within 2 minutes. Not a text message, but a voice note. The head stylist had raised the phone to her ear, and Jion's voice had filled the back of the salon, low and controlled and deeply satisfied. "Good work. Make sure she understands she is worthless here. That child she's carrying, it will never inherit. It was never going to. Make sure she knows that too." The stylist had smiled. She did not know that Minjun had placed a trace on his sister's private communications 17 days ago. He had not known what specifically he was looking for. He had known only that Jion's behavior over the preceding months had sharpened into something that made the particular instinct he had survived on for 15 years stand up and pay attention. The unscheduled visits to businesses he didn't recognize. The new personnel in her circle he hadn't vetted. The way she had looked at Aisha's stomach at the last family dinner, not with distaste, which he expected from her, but with the specific calculation of someone pricing something out. He had set a trace on her calls and messages as a precaution, the way a careful man checks his locks before bed even when he believes his house is safe. He had been in a meeting with 3 of his senior associates when the alert came through, his sister's communication flag. He had stepped out of the room. He had pulled the trace data on his phone. He had seen the photo of his wife, 7 months pregnant, sitting in a salon chair with no hair and tears running down her face. He had read the message above it. And then he had heard the voice note. He had listened to it twice, not because he needed to hear it again, but because he was the kind of man who made absolutely certain before he moved. Then he had put his phone in his pocket, walked back into the meeting room, looked at the 3 men seated there and said with complete calm, "Get the cars ready, Chung Damdong." He had already been dialing Aisha before he finished the sentence. The black SUVs arrived outside Muril 22 minutes after his call. Inside the salon, someone by the window saw them pull up 3 vehicles, moving in the synchronized way of people who have done this before, and said something sharp in Korean. The atmosphere in the salon changed instantly. The laughter from the back stopped. The stylists who had been showing each other the videos on their phones put them away. The head stylist came out from the back and looked at the window and felt, for the first time, something that was not confidence. The door opened. Minjun walked in first, alone, the 3 men behind him staying near the entrance. He was not large in the way that announced itself. He was contained, the kind of stillness that reads as dangerous precisely because nothing in it was performed. He was wearing a dark coat, and he had his hands in his pockets, and he looked around the salon with the expression of a man taking a full inventory. Then he saw Aisha. She had not moved from the chair. She had her phone in her lap and both hands over her stomach, and she was looking at him with an expression that cracked something open in him that he did not let reach his face. He crossed to her first. He crouched down in front of the chair so they were at the same level, and he took both her hands in his, carefully, the way you handle something precious, and he looked at her face and then at her bare scalp, and he held what he was feeling somewhere behind his eyes where none of the people watching would ever find it. "Are you hurt?" he said quietly. "The baby." "We're okay," she whispered. "We're both okay." He held her hands for another 3 seconds. Then he stood up. He turned and looked at the head stylist, who who had positioned herself near the counter with the particular body language of someone who has decided their best option is to appear cooperative. "You run this salon?" he asked. His Korean was flat and precise. "Yes," she said. He reached into his coat pocket and took out his phone. He found the voice note. He pressed play. Jion's voice filled the salon. "Good work. Make sure she understands she is worthless here. That child she's carrying, it will never inherit. It was never going to. Make sure she knows that too." The head stylist went white. In the silence that followed, one of the younger stylists at the back made a small sound, not quite a word, more like the beginning of a denial, and then stopped. "My sister," Minjun said very quietly, "paid you to do this." No one answered. "I'm going to ask this once," he said. "How long have you been working for her?" The head stylist's composure collapsed in stages. First the shoulders, then the jaw, then the voice, which came out thin and high and stripped of all the authority it had carried 40 minutes ago when she had been pressing clippers against a pregnant woman's scalp. "4 months," she said. She came to us 4 months ago. She said she would pay triple our rates if we handled one client specifically. She told us what to do. She told us it was a family matter. She said the woman needed to be taught her place." "Taught her place," Minjun repeated. His voice was so even it was frightening. "She told us," the woman started. "She told you," he said, "to put your hands on my pregnant wife. She directed you to humiliate her. She had you record it." He looked at the phone in the stylist's pocket. "Give me the video." The phone was handed over immediately. He looked at it. He looked at the footage of his wife begging them to stop. He looked at the footage of her crying with her hands on their unborn child. He watched the part where one of the women laughed. He handed the phone to one of his men, without looking away from the head stylist. "Here is what happens now," he said. "Every one of you who participated in this is going to sit down in these chairs, and you are going to do to yourselves exactly what you did to my wife." The salon went absolutely still. "That's not..." The salon owner began from somewhere near the back, having emerged at some point during the confrontation. "You have a choice," Minjun said, turning to look at him. "You can cooperate, or I can make the alternative significantly less comfortable for you." He looked back at the stylists. "My wife begged you to stop. She told you she was pregnant. She said please, and you laughed." His voice remained level throughout all of this, which was somehow worse than if it had risen. "So this is how it goes." The security camera footage showed it all. By the time it was over, 6 stylists sat in their own chairs with shaved heads and shaking hands, and the kind of silence that is indistinguishable from understanding. The salon owner was on his knees. "Like this video if you believe in justice, because we are nowhere near done. The main event hasn't happened yet." Within 48 hours of the salon confrontation, Minjun's legal team had acquired the Merle chain outright. It took him less time than it should have, partly because Jion's partial ownership had been structured through shell accounts that were not difficult to unravel once someone with sufficient motivation and resources started pulling threads. The transaction was completed quietly, efficiently, and with the particular finality of a man who has decided to leave no loose ends. He renamed it on the 3rd day. Aisha's Crown. The sign went up without announcement, and the story behind it spread through the industry in the way that stories in tight circles always do, in whispers that moved faster than any press release. Every stylist who had been present for what happened to Aisha was terminated that same day and blacklisted from every salon, spa, and beauty establishment in Seoul that operated within Minjun's reach. In that industry, in that city, his reach was long enough to matter. Within a week, not one of them had been able to secure employment in their field. The family council meeting happened 4 days after the salon. Jion arrived with the composure of a woman who had not yet accepted that the game was over. She sat at the long table in the family boardroom and looked at her brother across it with the expression of someone preparing to negotiate. She had a story prepared. She had anticipated that there would be fallout, and she had built a framework around it. She had been protecting the family legacy, the bloodline, the long-term stability of the organization. Things that Minjun's emotion had always made him too soft to see clearly. He played her voice note on the boardroom speakers before she had finished her second sentence. The room heard it. Good work, make sure she understands she is worthless here. That child she's carrying, it will never inherit. It was never going to. Make sure she knows that too. Then he laid the documentation on the table. The payment records. The 4 months of communications with the salon staff. The original brief she had given the head stylist, recovered from the stylist's phone, which was remarkably specific and remarkably vicious, and left absolutely no room for the interpretation that what had happened was anything other than a deliberate, premeditated attack on his pregnant wife. Jion looked at the documents. She looked at the faces around the table. She looked at her brother. "You put a trace on my communications," she said, and for just a moment the composure broke, and what came through was something closer to its actual shape, not outrage at being surveilled, but the cold fury of a person who had underestimated someone they had decided to underestimate. "I did," he said. "That is a violation of trust. You sent men to humiliate my pregnant wife in a salon chair," he said. "You told them to make sure she felt worthless. You directed them to ensure our child would know it had no claim to this family." His voice was still level. It was the levelness of something at absolute zero. Trust was not something you were entitled to. The council stripped her of her operating authority that same afternoon. Every business interest she held within the family organization was transferred or frozen. Every privilege of her position was revoked. It was done formally, procedurally, with the particular coldness of a family that has spent generations making difficult decisions and knows how to do so without sentiment. Then Minjun told the council what the additional condition of her continued place in the family would be. Jion heard it. She sat very still. "You will go to my wife," he said. "You will go to her today, and you will kneel, and you will apologize. Not because I am asking you to perform contrition, because she deserves to hear from your own mouth that what you did to her was wrong. And then you will report to Aisha's crown every morning for the next 6 months. You will clean the floors. You will wash the tools. You will do it without pay and without complaint, and you will do it in the building that now carries her name. Because every time you are there, I want you to understand exactly what your jealousy and your hatred cost you." Jion's jaw tightened. "Or," he said, "I can make the other options available." In this organization, everyone knew what the other options meant. She came to the apartment that evening. Aisha answered the door. She was wearing comfortable clothes, no makeup, a silk wrap on her head. She looked at her sister-in-law standing in the hallway and said nothing. Jion, who had never in her adult life bent her knee to anyone, bent it then. She went down slowly, the way proud people do, fighting every centimeter of the way. And when she was kneeling on the hallway floor, she looked up at Aisha and said, in Korean that was measured and formal and completely stripped of its usual authority, "I was wrong. What I did to you was wrong. I am sorry." Aisha looked at her for a long moment. "Get up," she said quietly. "I don't need you on your knees, I just needed to hear it." Jion stood. "You should know," Aisha said, "that I'm not afraid of you. I never was, and I never will be, and neither will my son." Jion left without another word. Minjun was waiting in the living room when Aisha came back in. He looked at her face the way he always looked at her face, like it was the most important thing in the room. "How do you feel?" he asked. She sat down next to him. She leaned her head against his shoulder. She put his hand on her stomach where the baby was moving, small, insistent pressures against the palm, a child who had no idea what the world above him had been doing in his name. "I feel like I want this to be over," she said, "and like it already is." He pressed his lips to the top of her head, her bare, smooth scalp, the place where the clippers had been. He held them there for a long time. "No one," he said, "not ever again." She believed him. 6 weeks later, in a private suite in the best hospital in Seoul, Aisha Thompson gave birth to a boy. He was born just after 4 in the morning, in the specific quiet of that hour, and he cried exactly once before settling into the kind of alert, wide-eyed calm that made the attending nurses exchange a look and smile. He had his father's brow and his mother's mouth, and 10 perfect fingers and 10 perfect toes. And when Aisha held him for the first time, she looked down at his face and felt something so large move through her that she couldn't speak for several minutes. Minjun sat on the edge of the bed with his hand against the baby's back, this man who had spent 15 years being feared by half of Seoul, and he looked at the two of them and he was, for that moment, just a man, just a father, just someone who had nearly lost this and knew it and would never forget it. They named the boy Jion. In Korean, it meant the beginning of greatness. Aisha's recovery took time, the way these things do. Her hair grew back slowly, and she documented it. She started posting about it, at first just for herself, updates from a new mother reclaiming her scalp after a traumatic experience, product recommendations, technique breakdowns, the specific challenges of maintaining natural textured hair during pregnancy and postpartum. The response surprised her. Women from across Seoul, from across Korea, from across the world, wrote to her with their own versions of the same story. Salons that had turned them away, stylists who hadn't known what to do with their hair, the particular exhaustion of having to advocate for your own dignity every time you wanted a simple service. She spent her maternity leave building something. She called it Crown Care, a natural hair brand designed specifically for pregnant and postpartum women of color. She launched it quietly, with no press, with only the following she had built during those months of honest posting. Within 3 months, it had a wait list. Within 6, it had partnered with the new version of Aisha's Crown, where it was stocked exclusively, and where every Thursday morning, Jion arrived to clean the floors. Jion served her 6 months. She did not complain. She did not make it dramatic. She came and she worked and she left. Whether something changed in her during those months, whether she came to understand, in the dailiness of that humiliation, what she had tried to do and why it had been wrong, Aisha neither knew nor particularly needed to know. What she needed to know was that the people who worked in that salon were safe and well paid and treated with respect, and that the name above the door meant something real. Jion lost the influence she had spent decades building and did not get it back. The network of salons she had weaponized was either reabsorbed into the family organization or quietly shut down. The infrastructure of intimidation she had built, brick by careful brick, over years, it dissolved in weeks, the way things do when the person holding them together decides to stop. The lesson she had paid for was the oldest and most expensive one, that jealousy does not protect what it believes it is protecting. It only destroys. And when the destruction comes back around, it comes all the way. The final voiceover carries the moral of this story, and it is this: never make the mistake of believing that a quiet woman is a weak one. Aisha Thompson did not raise her voice in that salon. She said please. She begged. And she walked out of it eventually and went home and did not fall apart. She built something instead. She gave birth to a son, and then she gave other women the tools to take care of themselves, because she understood, the way only someone who has been through it understands, that being cared for properly is not a luxury. It is a right. And never betray your own family out of hate. Jion had everything the family name could offer her, and she destroyed it reaching for what she thought she deserved. She looked at her brother's wife and saw a threat, and in doing so she made herself into one. The streets are dangerous, yes, but the person sitting at your dinner table who has decided you are an enemy, that is a different kind of danger entirely. One that comes without warning and lives behind a smile. Blood means nothing when loyalty is broken. What means something is the person who holds your hand in the quiet hours. What means something is the name you put above the door. What means something is a baby boy born just after 4 in the morning who does not yet know that the world moved on his behalf before he ever arrived in it. He will know one day, and when he does, he will know what his mother survived to bring him here. He will know what his father was willing to do. He will know that the woman who bore him never once stopped fighting, even when all she could do was press her hands against her stomach and hold on. That is the whole story. If this one moved you, hit the like button right now. Subscribe to this channel for more stories about loyalty, betrayal, power, and the people who survive all three. And drop a baby in the comments if you want part 2, because Jion's 6 months ended. And the story of what she tried to do after. That is a different kind of war entirely. We'll see you there.